So, you've decided to play the flute. Well, this is the flute in its case, and it comes in three separate parts. That's the main part, the foot joint, and the mouthpiece. It also comes with a cleaning rod, which I'll show you how to use later. Now, it's very important when you take the flute out of its case that you don't pick it up by the keys, because this can bend things. So it's very important that you pick it up either end like this. Once you've done that, pick up the foot joint, being very careful that you do not touch these parts here, because if you press these too hard they can go out of adjustment and some of your bottom notes won't work. So we place our hands over the keys like this, not touching these, and join the two parts together like this. Just a slight twisting movement will be quite ample, and then join the mouthpiece onto the main body, and that is your fully assembled flute. After you've finished playing, your flute will be full of water from your breath, so it's very important that we clean this out. Now, the first thing we do is to take off the head joint and the foot joint and place them onto a table. Never ever work on a soft surface like a settee or a bed or a chair, because somebody could come along and sit on the instrument and then it will bend. Now, if it does get bent, it's not irreparable, but believe me, it can be very expensive. So always work on a table. All you need is a handkerchief and the cleaning rod that it comes with. Now, the cleaning rod is a long piece of stick with an eye in it, and you place the corner of the cloth through there and then clean the instrument by putting the cloth into the flute and leaving it there for a little bit just to absorb the water, and then pull it out. And we do this with all three joints, and then the flute's clean. Now, it's very important also to remember that these joints can sometimes be very difficult to put together. Now, there can be two reasons for this. One is that it's taken a bit of a knock, either on the case or a table or a chair, anything like that really. If this is the case, you'll be able to see that there'll be some distortion on the end. Take it to a repairer. Don't try repairing it yourself. Take it to a repairer and they will sort it all out for you. That will be no problem. The other reason is that you can sometimes get some dirt forming on the tenon. Now, if you do, it's easy enough to take off. All you have to do, use paper kitchen towel, wipe off the tenon, but also wipe out the socket that the tenon goes into. It's really, really important. Do the same thing with the other end of the flute as well, and the socket from the foot joint. Okay. If it is difficult to put together, never ever be tempted to use grease, because the grease will mix with any dirt or metal filings and water that are coming off of the flute, and it will form a grinding paste. Now, after a while, that will make your joints very loose, and we don't want that to happen. Again, we can repair it, but it's best if you just keep the joints clean and dry. When you've cleaned your flute, you'll find that the cloth will be very, very damp. Now, it's very important that you don't put the cloth on top of the instrument inside the case, because any moisture that you've taken from the inside of the flute will be then deposited on the outside of the flute, which we don't want because that can hurt the mechanism. So if you have a case cover or a bag to put it in, that's the best place. Now, most flutes that are made nowadays are plated in silver, which keeps them nice and bright and shiny. But after a few weeks of playing, the sweat from your hands can actually make the silver dull. Now, this is quite normal. It doesn't matter. It's not going to harm the flute at all. But it's a good idea to remove some of the sweat and water from the flute after you've finished playing. Now, what you mustn't do is to use any silver polish, because that can get into the mechanism and be very harmful. But what I would suggest you do is buy an impregnated silver cloth like this and just wipe over the flute long ways like this. You don't have to try too hard to make it shiny, because a shiny flute's hard to hold. So don't worry too much. The main thing is just to get off the bulk of the moisture that's on the flute.